And what is going on, everyone? And welcome to another very special edition of Houston Texans football on the new Bleacher Report app. I am one part of your show, Ruben Calavillo, dropping daily Houston Texans content on my channel on YouTube, 713 Houston Sports. My co host also does daily Houston Texans content, but the Astros are going. They're winning. Won the series against the Seattle Mariners. The Rockets have just clinched the second seed in their conference. Hardy does it all. How's it going, Baba?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited about the Astros and the Rockets. Astros just got up 6-4 now
Mm.
from the Mariners. So shout out to Jeremy Pena with the double and the steal. Then becoming a run there, get that extra insurance run. But yeah, the Rockets obviously lots of fun with them right now. They just locked up the second seed since the Lakers lost last night, and we are, I think we're exactly 2 weeks away. Let me see.
Yeah.
No, we are
Mm.
almost 2 weeks exactly to the day of the first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And Harley is going to have you guys covered on the Bleacher Report app. I will be at Dave and Buster's in the Houston area doing a live show with the boys. But Harley, have you gotten draft fatigue yet?
Nah,
Nah.
nah. It's
How
it's
many
always.
times have you watched Emeka Abuka's highlights today? Highlights since the end of the season.
I would say 2 or 3 times. Honestly,
Okay.
I'd say
Wow.
2 or 3 times.
I'm
You
surprised.
know, yeah, 2 or 3. He has that continuity with CJ. Who
Who's your
knows?
most watched player?
My most watched player. I would definitely say it's Walter Nolan.
Okay.
Love Walter Nolan's game. I was ecstatic to hear Jordan Reed's excitement about Walter Nolan and how he could potentially be an Ed Oliver for the Houston Texans
Mm.
defense, which that was his comp. He's
Goku.
just a bigger Ed Oliver. So that would be, man, that would be so exciting to grab a centerpiece like that for the defensive tackle spot. I would enjoy. I think one of the guys that the Texans just had a visit with,
Mm.
um, from that nobody has been talking about, the cornerback from Central Florida, Mac McWilliams.
Okay.
They just visited with him, I believe yesterday, or it was reported at least yesterday or 2 days ago. And my goodness, I looked
Dog.
at, oh my goodness. I know that cornerback, I don't know where he is in terms of his projections. I didn't look that far, but
Yeah, I'm
my
looking right now.
goodness, his when you search him up on Twitter, all of the film is immediately his one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, and he was doing his thing. Mac McWilliams was a dog for Central Florida, it looks like. He was locking up receivers left and right all day at the Senior Bowl. They said he was one of the most impressive cornerbacks at the Senior Bowl. And my goodness, he was doing his thing. I could see him rocking a Houston Texans jersey. I know secondary, but you can never have enough corners. You never have enough in this league, especially considering we are a very heavy passing NFL league. I would not be upset if the Texans did come away with a Mac McWilliams. I don't know where his projection is. I'll say that though.
So he's projected as the 245th prospect according to Pro Football Sports Network. He's
Yeah,
5'10", 191 pounds. So let's just say he's going in what, the fifth, sixth round.
yeah, you're looking at a day 3 pick.
Okay, so they actually have a scouting profile here.
Yeah,
Wow. Shout out to Pro Football Sports Network, man.
yeah, good for them. Thank you.
Mac McWilliams is a G5 corner with average size and below average length.
Hmm.
His experience lining up in the slot, but was primarily used as an outside corner. Has a strong and consistent track record of production, possesses good ball skills, has 23 career pass breakups. Average tackler who can be prone to allowing big plays after the ball was caught, physical at the line of scrimmage when in press coverage, has decent fluidity and good transitions when in coverage, an active run defender who consistently seeks out plays in the run game, foot quickness and long speed are just okay, and he displays good awareness and knowledge of where he is on the field. So I wouldn't mind some more depth in the cornerback department. Hey, I wouldn't mind if you try to do a project and turn Mac McWilliams into that Jalen Petrie star role, as it says there. He's very, he's active in the run game. Wouldn't mind that whatsoever. So since we're on that topic, right? Some more, news about players who met with the Houston Texans, and I don't think we've talked about those guys here on Bleacher Report yet. Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. Now he stands at 6'1", I believe 220 plus pounds. Harley, is it fair to say he's just like a carbon copy? I don't want to say carbon copy, but when I see Caleb Johnson, I see Joe Mixon.
Yeah, yeah. I could agree with you there. I know everyone has thrown Omarion Hampton as that guy that's Joe Mixon.
Mm,
But Caleb Johnson's there too. I mean, he super shifty running back when it comes to his jump cut ability. Man, I mean, I thought he was going to be somebody that might be a little underrated in this
mm-hmm,
draft. But he's definitely getting his love around the NFL, and a guy that I was hoping that maybe could be a quick day 3 pick for you is nowhere going to be there. He
no.
is definitely a day 2 pick and could be creeping up them boards too. Who knows if somebody is that desperate for a running back. Hey, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if there was another running back taken, a third running back taken in the first round besides just Ashton Genty. Marion Hampton looks like he's going to be a first round pick. Things could change. Caleb Johnson or Travion Henderson, one of them two guys, I feel like another running back could sneak in there.
Mm-hmm.
Running back is so deep in this draft class, but Caleb Johnson, man, I mean, I would love that to be rocking a Liberty white jersey for the Houston Texans on Sundays.
And he posted that he had met with the Texans on his Instagram. And, if we could put our tinfoil hats on, he also showed another player who a lot of fans are thinking is Greg Zabel,
Mhm.
offensive tackle slash guard out of North Dakota State, who has been getting a lot of love recently about him creeping into the first round, but he's also been projected as an early day 2 pick. The Texans need a tackle. The Texans need a guard. And
Mhm.
Greg Zabel can play both of those. I wouldn't mind that whatsoever.
No, I
25, I'll
wouldn't
do it.
either. Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. I agree with you. Everyone continues to say that he'll fill in perfectly at guard. Saw him at the Senior Bowl doing reps, one-on-one reps, and he was at the guard position. So
Mhm.
I think ultimately that's where he's going to end up being. And I like Gray Zabel. I really do. I think there's a lot of good upside there. I think he's a safe pick when it comes to offensive linemen. And for the Houston Texans, there's no problem with a safe pick when it comes to the offensive line. You need any sort of youth and talent injected into your own line, and Gray Zabel definitely brings that. He has the versatility card, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, where he could be flexed out as a tackle if needed. So yeah, I mean, the Texans need it in the worst way possible. Again, rather shocking, considering that the Texans don't draft guys that are not from Power Five
Mhm.
schools, and North Dakota State isn't even in the FBS. They're in FCS schools. So, hey, there's a first time for everything though, and you need an offensive lineman bad, desperately. And if they think Gray Zabel's that guy, I don't think he's going to be there at 58.
Mm.
But unless they're
25?
looking to trading back up in the second round, or they just think he is high on their board where they can take him at 25. It feels like a little bit of a
A reach.
little, yeah, a little bit. But again, if they are confident in him and they don't think they're going to have the ability to trade back up to grab him, then hey, who am I to deter away from what the Texans are going to do there?
Well, we've seen Nick Casario trade up. Why not just trade back? Get yourselves some extra picks. And, if you could get from 25 to, let's say, 27, 28, I would say, I would feel more comfortable because not only did I get myself Greg Zabel, but I also got myself, some extra draft picks for either this current draft or the draft for next year. Then who knows what the hell happens and I can make something work.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if, man, have we seen Nick trade back?
Yeah, I know we have. I
Yeah,
can't
like I
remember.
know he had. I just can't remember
Can't
where
remember
because
specifically, but yeah,
wasn't Jalen Petrie traded up for
I want to say so. And I know he traded up for John Mechie,
and
um,
Nico?
and Nico. I feel like he has though. It might have been like a day three pick that he's traded down though.
Right.
I don't
So
remember a day one at all. He hasn't traded down from a day one pick. Well, no, yeah, he traded down from
yeah,
for
but Kenyon
Kenyon Green.
Green, yeah.
Yep, that's the trade down because you could have had Kyle Hamilton or Jordan Davis, but
Oh, I'm getting flashbacks now. Trading back a couple picks for a guard.
that one
Just
was tough for me because
that.
I thought I thought Kyle Hamilton or Jordan Davis would have been perfect for you there. They fell to your laps at 13. You ended up trading down two spots, and the next two picks is Jordan Davis and Kyle Hamilton,
Tyler
and it just makes
Lindenbaum.
you go, well, that might have not been the smartest move for Nick Casario.
Dude, if you would have got Tyler Lindenbaum, you would have just have to worry about,
That would have been fun too.
three out of the four positions. Who knows how your offensive line is, right? If you have Tyler Lindenbaum, just goes to show you that the NFL draft is very important. And for the Houston Texans, they don't have time really to wait for anyone if they truly are seeing this next 1 to 2 years as, the closing of one of your first windows. And I would agree it is one of your first windows being closed because soon after you're going to have to pay CJ Stroud and make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So that's why there is a huge emphasis on this draft being successful. Harley, you mentioned earlier Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
At 25, would it shock you if they took Walter Nolan? Because I can bet you a lot of Houston Texans fans will be upset that you didn't go tackle.
Oh yeah, I understand what they're trying to say there. I get it. I get
But
that.
it's going to happen if you go Walter Nolan.
I mean, I get it. I understand that there is a need at offensive line and even receiver, and for you to pass up what is an overarching need on this football team to go grab yourself another defensive piece when you've already done so much on the defensive side of the ball. Even this offseason, you've re-signed your guys, you added a few more guys, and
Mhm.
then you swung for a big trade and got CJ Gardner Johnson, snatched him away from the Eagles for that said Kenyon Green. And so, I get it. I understand it, but it shouldn't shock anybody considering who the head coach of this football team is. And we know
Mm,
at the end of the day, D'Amico Ryans loves himself some defense. And if he believes Walter Nolan is that last key for his defense to transform itself from not just even a top 10 defense, top 8 defense, top
mm,
5 defense, but if it is one of the best three defenses in the NFL because Walter Nolan, who is could be a rookie for this team and has the potential to be an Ed Oliver type for the Houston Texans, you pairing him up with Sheldon Rankins, Will Anderson, Daniel Hunter, opposing offenses will be in flux and they
mm.
wouldn't know what to do. But the opposing side of the football, yeah, there is a question where you're going to go, okay, why didn't they grab themselves an offensive lineman? Are they doing themselves a disservice
Mm.
to avoid the offense and continue to stack up on defense? It's a legit conversation. It shouldn't shock nobody because of the Miko, but I understand some of the hate around
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a huge talking point if you get out of night one of the NFL draft and have a
it.
defensive player, and not, let's say, a Josh Simmons, Kelvin Banks, hey, even a Greg Zabel. It's going to be a conversation that goes well into the night because you know how crazy Twitter spaces get during the NFL draft. But I myself would be shocked a little bit, Harley, to be honest with you. But I would say, okay, you got to go in tomorrow with three other top 100 selections, and you got to go, all in. And, it's funny because I did a mock draft earlier this morning where I traded from 25 to 27 with Baltimore. Got myself an extra first round pick. They ended up themselves getting Walter Nolan. Funny that we were talking about him. Um, I took a Mecca Abuka, and second round, Jonah Savanaya, offensive guard out of Arizona. Third
Mm,
round, I got myself Dylan Fairchild, guard out of Georgia, and then I got your boy Mason Taylor. Just because he helps, your pass blocking as well. If he does indeed get himself stronger, so you could look at it as a whole and say, I potentially got my left and right guard of the future because both Junior Savanea and Dylan Fairchild, some of the pros about them is they're very good pass protectors. And that's one thing that our head coach D'Amico Ryan said is a need heading into this year is pass protection. So if you do go defensive tackle, man, dude, you're going to have to overload with those other three picks.
yeah, and I understand. I mean, you mentioned there's still three other picks in the top 100, and you can't forget that you have a second round pick next year
Mm.
that you could pony up if you really wanted to dip your toe again into the top 100 and grab yourself someone else. I don't necessarily think that the Texans need to sway and go crazy, with a wide receiver specifically. Like, if they don't get a wide receiver, then they don't get a wide receiver. You still got plenty of other guys that are free agents as well, veterans that are still out there that could be very beneficial for this team. If they don't get nobody, then oh well. If they went out and grabbed the best player available in Walter Nolan, who ends up being an absolute dynamo on the defensive side of the ball and is playing up to a Will Anderson kind of level on defense, then fans won't have a problem with
Mm.
it. But it is going to be dependent on his play. If he plays horrible, then fans are definitely going to have a problem with it. And they're going to be like, oh no, you should have drafted XYZ offensive lineman. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's always a conversation, hindsight 2020. But I just think that considering Walter Nolan is that high of a guy, Jordan Reed had him rated number 11 on his big board. That's how high as he got him. And if he got him at 25, man, you're doing a lot there. Jonas Savanea is a good one. Jordan Reed talked about him as well too. Somebody that fits what D'Amico Ryans is looking for. I asked him specifically who fits that grit, toughness, a player that has leadership, good character kind of qualities. And Jordan Reed mentioned Tyler Booker, Kelvin Banks, but he mentioned Jonas Savanea. There's two times where Jordan Reed has mocked Savanea to the Houston Texans. He only
Mm.
has 6 mock drafts, and 2 of them include Savanea going to the Houston Texans. So, I mean, he's a guard tackle, has flexibility, lots of versatility for this Texans team. I would enjoy having him on this football team, and you get yourself a big Samoan on the O line.
Yeah, and then and you finish it up in the third round with someone like Dylan Fairchild, who I think could compete at left guard, and maybe Titus Howard goes back and tries to compete against Cam Little for that left tackle spot. It
Mm.
would concern me though if two rookies are starting. However, I would say the best man won because That's what the Houston Texans are going for this training camp is competition. And you can argue, Hardy, that there is competition between 2 to 3 guys at every single position on this offensive line. I really have no clue who is going to be starting week one. But I want to ask you one more question. Is there any other move left that this Houston Texans team can do before the NFL draft, bringing themselves some talent? Is there anyone out there?
Well, I mean, there's still the case of a few veteran wide receivers that I was implying. If the Houston Texans, because there's definitely going to be, okay, they're going to look at these whoever it is, whatever position it is, and if they don't
Mm-hmm.
feel confident enough in one of these guys that it's going to be coming out in the wide receiver group, it ain't the greatest this year. It's
Yeah.
it's solid, but it ain't as great as last year's. Last year's was loaded. But so if they don't feel confident enough in, let's say, wide receiver, let's continue that conversation, then there is a guy. You got Tyler Lockett who's available, who's a veteran out there
Mm.
that the Houston Texans could go grab. And, he played with the Seahawks. He's played against the Rams with Sean McVay, and he played against Nick Caley. There's definitely some sort of indirect relationship there. Other offensive linemen, I mean, you can take a look at Dalton Risner. He's still available. The Houston Texans have continuously attacked the Minnesota Vikings offensive line group. They went out and got Cam
Yeah.
Robinson, former Minnesota Viking. They went out and got Ed Ingram, former Minnesota Viking. So, and who's the head coach? Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell has a history with Sean McVay because he was with the LA Rams. So there's definitely some sort of implied connection there. And if they just missed out on an offensive lineman, they only got one guy at an offensive line in the top 100, and if they think they could still improve the O line, then yeah, they're going to dip their toe back into it. We got to
Mm.
remember Shaq Mason. That money is going to come after June 1st.
Oh,
So that
right.
there could be a move that could happen for the Texans. They were initially going to have it happen. That money was going to set before, but they would have saved a lot more money if it was post June 1st. So yeah, you're gonna have about, I think it was like $8 million or $9 million that they would have freed up. So that's gonna be available for the Texans after June 1st. I don't expect any like trades or anything. Like
Mm.
I wouldn't consider no damn Titus Howard trade. Like
Okay.
that
What
doesn't
was
make
your
no
thoughts
sense.
about the Tyreek Hill rumors a couple of days ago?
That's a fun one. I mean, if you really want to swing for the fences, Tyreek Hill, oof, man, him in a Texans jersey would be fun, right?
In
I
the Nate
mean,
Cayley offense?
yeah, right. And considering that if Nick Caley has the success that we're hoping he could have, he can only be here for 1 year,
Mm.
and yeah, it's a big risk, but wouldn't you want to take that big risk by throwing another big risk out there and getting a Tyreek Hill? That'd be fun. That's a fun hypothetical that obviously we don't expect to
No,
happen.
absolutely not.
But man, he's got his name in a lot of bad media right now. But I know that doesn't shy the Houston Texans. Nick Casario came from the New England Patriots. People can talk all they want, but the New England
Mhm.
Patriots had numerous guys that had a checkered history that went to the Patriots and cleaned it up real quick. And we can use the previous example of Stephon Diggs. Not saying he had a checkered history, but there was definitely something brewing between him and Josh Allen. And it
Mhm.
was, not supposed to go as good here in Houston. And it was nothing about that.
Yeah, no, I don't think a trade for Tyreek Hill was going to happen. But just imagine the type of fireworks you would get here in Houston if that does. But he'll have to have his own section for all the kids that he has. Um, Other than that, man, no, I'm just looking forward to the NFL draft, which is almost 2 weeks away. There's not anything surprising, Hardy, that I think this Houston Texans can do in the draft because we know what the needs are. And when you look at everyone who they have talked to, offensive linemen, wide receivers, running backs, you're like, okay, the Houston Texans, I feel like themselves might be prioritizing an offense heavy draft. But I do think you have to add one defensive player in there, man. And someone else who's been mock draft at 25, Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out
Mm,
of Oregon. A lot of people are really saying just build yourself a Super Bowl defense. And I think it was Noah, dude, who tweeted, look at all the Rams offensive linemen and look where they were selected in the NFL draft. The Rams system has a way to develop these offensive linemen. So trust your coaching and, get BPA, get best player available. I just
mm.
don't think you could take a risk like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think BPA is definitely a way to go for the Houston Texans. I know they need O line. I know they need wide receiver. I get it, and the national conversation is always that we need O line and wide receiver. You traded away Tunsil. I understand. But at the same time, you don't want to draft somebody because of a need and then they just end up not being good for you. And, that's what happened with Kenyon Green. You needed a guard,
Mm-hmm.
you needed somebody on the offensive line. And they decided, well, we really need somebody on the line. So we're going to trade back and still get our guy. And it didn't end up happening. It didn't end up working out for the Texans. So, you know, to me, get the best player available and whoever's on their board. If that's Walter Nolan, then that's Walter Nolan. If that's whoever is on their board that's high. If it's Gray Zabel, it's Gray Zabel. If it's whoever. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, the Texans, okay, they have to enter this draft and go, okay, these are the guys that we want, and these are going to be guys that are high on our board, and we're going to select them at 25, and we're going to feel comfortable taking this no matter what.
I'm gonna start looking up these cornerbacks, man. Now that I know we are keeping an eye on someone later in the draft, and I'm pulling up these Mac McWilliams highlights. And dude, like you said, he's a baller.
He's fun. He's
Dude, he's
fun.
everywhere.
He kind of reminds me, and he has a similar movement style to Kamari Lassiter. And
Dog.
I mean, Kamari, which after he got drafted, and it was like,
Hmm.
I was like, who's Kamari Lassiter?
That's what
I'm
everyone
for real.
said when we heard his
I'm for
name
real. Because I thought it was gonna be Kool-Aid McKinstry. I really did.
right
And
before us.
it didn't happen. And it was Kamari Lassiter. And then we were all of us were like, who's Kamari Lassiter? Because I don't even
Hmm.
remember hearing his name at all for the
No.
pick. I remember the guy from that went to the Ravens that was at Clemson, Nate Wiggins. I
Yeah.
remember, he was an option for the Texans, and I was like, man, I'd love to get Nate Wiggins. Kamari was never. I don't even remember him. And then I'm looking at his stuff, and I'm like, man, this dude plays just with his hair on fire. I
Hmm.
love this, And then I looked at Mac McWilliams, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy plays 110%. I would love this.
And that's what you want, man, from these Houston Texans players is that swarm mentality. Harley, before we go, can you let everyone know where they can find you and all your latest work?
You can find me at TheLead_HOU anywhere on social media: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. YouTube specifically, I'm on the road to 15,000 subscribers. So, we're trying to get
Mhm.
there as best as possible. And, appreciate every single one of y'all, man. We're trying to get there, hopefully get to 13 and a half before the NFL draft. So it's only 2 more weeks away. We're pretty close to it. So, yeah, man, appreciate every single one of y'all that have watched, and check us out for more content.
Hey, yeah, guys, thank you so much. We will see you all Friday. You guys all have a very blessed day.